to the All the Books show, recorded at the David A. Howe Public Library. We talk book news, author news, and literary news. I'm Eric Mickles.
I'm Nick Gunning. How you doing today?
Good.
I'm a little excited today. I'm not going to lie to you.
Why are you so excited?
I'm excited about our special interview that we have lined up. This week, Eric and I had the pleasure of chatting with actor John Davey. Mr. Davey's long list of credits include films like There Was a Crooked Man with one Kirk Douglas.
You love Kirk Douglas.
I know.
You love the Douglas family.
I do. I really do. The Late Show with Lily Tomlin and A Fine Mess with Ted Danson.
Television credits include reoccurring roles on Barnaby Jones and The Rockford Files.
I love The Rockford
with James
Files.
Garner.
James Garner. Have you seen The Rockford Files?
Maybe 1 or 2 episodes.
Dig into it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Plus guest spots on shows like Ironside, The Mod Squad, Remington Steele, and MacGyver. Remington. That almost cost Pierce Brosnan
James Bond.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. Well, that wasn't John Davey's fault, though.
That we know of.
Anyway, very long list of credits here. Lots of different classic TV shows and films. He's most well known for playing Captain Marvel in the 1970s Saturday morning series Shazam.
He also showed up as Captain Marvel on Secrets of ISIS as part of the Shazam ISIS Hour.
You love ISIS.
ISIS never crossed over with Wonder Woman, though.
No, she didn't, but she was on Shazam.
Wonder Woman was on Shazam.
No, ISIS
was on Shazam. Yes, that I know.
Shazam
I've
was
seen
on
the
ISIS.
Shazam ISIS episodes. Yeah.
All right. Do you have a crush on ISIS?
Leave me alone.
Okay. Thanks to the success of the 2019 film Shazam, starring Zachary Levi, there's been a renewed interest in the character, leading DC Comics to release a remaster of the show for a new generation to discover.
We should say a renewed interest in the general public. You've never lost interest.
In Shazam?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. He's been an old school favorite. And I've got to say, these new remasters I've been watching with my son, he's way into it.
Yeah.
I just turned it on and let the fates decide if he was going to like it, but he does.
Nice.
He's super excited by
Congratulations.
it. So anyway, here it is. Let's chat with Mr. Davey.
John Davey, thanks for joining us here on the All the Book Show today.
Yes, Nick.
Yeah, it's me. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. Getting a little bored being stuck in my house all the time, but, you know.
Yeah, me too. I can relate to that.
You were just at a convention, 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, Pensacon in Pensacola.
Did any of the threats of viruses and everything, did they have lower turnout or anything, or was everything just...
No, it hadn't seemed to have taken root. It seemed to be just kind of emerging. Nobody was talking about it.
Yeah, well, it did come pretty quickly.
Yeah, it did. It really did.
Why don't we dive back to the early days? I have a lot of questions here for you, but I wanted to start with the Lucy show. Where we are in Wellsville is just a little over an hour away from Jamestown, Lucile Ball's hometown. So it's a great museum there. It's a lot of fun to go to. I'm an old school fan of I Love Lucy and the Lucy show and all that. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like as a young actor to suddenly find yourself doing physical comedy with Lucille Ball?
Well, it was a real shock because I first got into the business working as an extra.
Yeah.
And when they assigned me to the Lucy show just as an ordinary extra, I thought, well, it's just a couple of days' work. And
right.
What's next? But it turned out that they wanted me to deliver a line. And in order to do that, you have to be in the Screen Actors Guild.
Right.
And they asked me if I wanted to join, and I said, sure, I'll join, And that was my first acting SAG role.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty good start. I mean, it's a funny scene. So, in the episode...
It was intimidating, though. I mean, because Lucille Ball, she's a giant.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to deliver a line to her. I thought, oh, good Lord.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be terrifying. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, but it was one line, so, it wasn't too much that could go wrong.
Well, still, though, it's a funny scene to watch, because in the episode, Lucy gets drafted into the army by mistake, but she ends up next to you, and she really beats up on you in that scene.
Yeah.
Punching you in the stomach, knocking your head off, knocking you over and stuff. I mean, she really...
Yeah, she's a feisty little thing.
Yeah, that's what I hear. And I've always heard, too, that, she was real professional, real strict on the set. I mean, did you find that to be a loose set to be on, or was it just sort of rolling with the punches?
I mean, she was in charge
of
the set. There's no question about who was in charge, but she was, professional, and nobody got killed.
Yeah, right.
On the set.
Well, it's just funny, watching that scene, the way she really sort of zeroes in on you and drags you into a lot of that physical humor that she was so well known for. So I can just imagine, I mean, your first lines and all that being in that environment. It's a cool way to start.
Yeah, it was. was.
And I mean, you did a lot of TV work in those days, and I'm such a fan of TV from that era. So I mean, I have a million geek questions to ask you, but could you just talk a little bit about what life was like? What were you doing in between calls? I mean, was it something that you could just sort of quit your day job and just pop around doing guest spots and stuff, or what was that like?
Well, when I got the job with Lucile Ball, that gave him the A card, not the SAG card. But I still I had no ambitions about being an actor at all.
Oh, okay.
It was not on my bucket list at all.
Sure.
But it was so much fun, and it paid good. I finally got an agent, and he sent me out on interviews. Some of them I got, some of them I nailed, and some of them I didn't. Meanwhile, I had my ladder and paintbrush handy just to pay the bills sometimes. And then gradually I got to know more casting people and directors and things like that, and worked with them once or twice. Then they'd feel confident enough to ask for me or just hire me outright.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it went.
Prior to getting into acting, you were a boxer, right? I mean, isn't that where you sort of came up?
That's how I got into acting, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Universal Studios was a lot different back in the 60s.
I can imagine, yeah.
I mean, now it's like Disneyland. But back then it was just a studio. And across the street from the studio was this, there were little restaurants and hotels and things like that. And a friend of mine's father owned a little restaurant bar right across the street from, it was on Lancashire Boulevard, right across the street from Universal Studios. And a lot of people from the studio frequented that bar. And then his daughter got married. I was invited to the wedding, and a few other people in the business that worked at Universal mostly. And it wasn't even a big wedding, but it was just a small reception in his bar. And the extra casting director from Universal, I was introduced to him, and I'd just gotten back from a fight up in Boise, Idaho, and I had like 11 stitches in my eye, and my nose was, I was pretty banged up. and he said, "Holy crap! What's a nice kid like you doing a business like that? Why aren't you getting the?" And I said, "Oh, no, that's not for me. I didn't have any thought in my wildest dreams of being an actor."
Uh-huh.
But when my boxing manager, when he heard my reply to the casting guy at Universal, he said, what the hell's wrong with you? You just stuck your nose up at something that somebody would kill for.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm supposed to be a fighter, aren't I? You're my
right.
manager. And he said, yeah, but you can work in between fights. You don't fight every week.
Right.
It gives you a little more flexibility.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let me think about it. And a couple of days later, I called the casting director. Yeah, and he sent me over to Central Casting, which was the main casting department of films.
Sure.
Central Casting signed me up, and then I worked extra for a couple of years.
Wow.
And when I quit boxing, then I wanted something a little more
steady.
lucrative.
Yeah, right.
So I got an agent, and he said, I don't want you working extra if I'm going to send you out for acting parts.
Right.
So I was more than happy to quit working extra.
Yeah.
And I went to a couple of acting coaches for a few months.
Oh, okay.
Just to kind of give myself a little bit of more confidence.
Sure.
And then I became a full-fledged starving actor.
Yeah. All because you were at a wedding and they liked your look.
I think it was more of a humanitarian
process
for him.
I see. All right. So if you'd been a better fighter, you never would have got to be an actor. I guess that's the way to look at it then.
That's true. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And what kind of boxing had you been doing? Like what level, what circuits, that sort of thing?
I did most of my boxing in L.A.
Okay.
I also fought in New York, Oklahoma City, and Boise, Idaho, and all over that. I even fought once in Rome.
Oh, wow.
So I got around. I guess you'd call me a journeyman heavyweight. That's not a contender, not a complete bum, but...
Oh, that's good. That's good at least.
I trained really hard, and I showed up, and I did my best, and I won a few and lost a few. And it was a great experience. I'm really glad I did that, because that was my dream, really. So as a young kid, I just had to be a boxer. I was going to do it. I even joined the Marines specifically because I figured they were the roughest outfit, so they would get me in shape and help my boxing career. But didn't have that great a boxing career, but it was an honest effort, and I'm not sorry I did it.
Sure. And now that was something you were just into from childhood on?
Yeah, my dad was a big boxing fan. And
okay.
he used to sort of as his own entertainment. My brother is only 15 months older than me. He got 2 pair of boxing gloves, and he just kind of entertained everybody with my brother and I punching the hell out of each other.
Oh, that's funny.
But I guess I got so much attention,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That I just kind of wanted to do that on a larger scale.
Oh, sure. Well, it makes sense if that was something that you and your dad enjoyed together, that it would have interest to you later on.
Yeah.
And it did sort of come back into your acting career as well. And I know you did. You played a couple of boxers in film, didn't you? You were in a show, The Contender, and Goldie and the Boxer, a few things like that.
Yeah, I did several roles as a boxer in television and film.
And quite a few cops, it looks like, as well.
Yep, a lot of cops, a lot of truck drivers. Never played any doctor. Oh, yeah, I did. I played a doctor one time.
Oh, that's there's some range. That's great.
Robert Altman's three women. I played a doctor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's talk about films for a minute, because just in the intro here we were talking about The Late Show, and I always been curious about that because you have a credit. It says John Davey as Sergeant Dayton. Is that something that they cut from the movie?
Well, we went to see it in a theater. I was in the film.
Okay.
But on television, I wasn't.
Oh, really?
And I don't know what shape it's in now, but I was in the film.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I've never seen it since.
Well, it's a fun movie. I like the movie.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was. How does working on a film differ from working on like a television program?
It's usually you get a little more slack working on a film.
Okay.
Whereas TV shows they had to pump on out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, Lucille Ball smacking you around on a TV set.
That first job kind of held me in check for whatever.
I'm sure it did. Well, what about I'm such a Neil Simon fan. I love The Odd Couple and all versions of The Odd Couple. And, the episode you did, it cracks me up. You arm wrestling with Jack Klugman and all that. What was that set like? I mean, that seems like, that show's so fun. Those guys seem like, they'd be fun to work with, be around.
Yeah, from the top down. Gary Marshall was just the greatest guy to work with. I mean, he was just, you talk to him 5 minutes and it's like he's your best pal.
Yeah.
And he's funnier than heck.
Yeah.
He keeps everybody relaxed. And it's hard to do because that's a half-hour show and they got to crank it out. And it's not easy. But he was just a real relaxed guy. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think on that same segment I did, I think Teri Garr was in it. I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't remember Teri Garr being in that, but I love Teri Garr.
I was in an acting class, and she was in it.
Oh, really?
And I always liked her because she was just like she would try to do a dramatic scene, and people would be howling while she's doing this dramatic scene because she's funny. She's just funny.
Oh, yeah.
She can't help funny.
Yeah. Anything she popped up in, I love. Mr. Mom, with Michael Keaton, she's so great in that.
Yeah, she was great. Yeah.
Now, you also did several episodes of the Rockford Files. I mean, that must have been a good time. James Garner seems like he'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, he was a great guy. Yeah. I'd say he was my favorite superstar, I guess you could call him. I think he was.
That show, I mean, now the theme song to the Rockford Files is going to be stuck in my head for the next 6 weeks. But, I mean, it's just such a great show.
Yeah, he was a fun guy. I was working on one of the episodes, and it was on location somewhere out near Long Beach. So I drove to the location very early in the morning, and so I went over to craft service and got my cup of coffee and tried to get myself ready.
Yeah.
Woke up and ready for the job, and I spotted Jim Garner and Denny Miller. Denny Miller was a really good friend of mine, and they were shooting the bull with each other. So I walked over and I said, "Hey, how you guys doing? Hi, John. And they went back then talking to each other. I'm standing there with my coffee and I'm just listening.
Right.
And Denny Miller was saying something about, I'll fly over to such and such place and then I'm going to pick up a couple. And I said, I didn't know you were a pilot, Denny. And they said, we're trying to rehearse. I said, oh my God, if the earth could have swallowed me up right then, I would have been a happy camper.
Oh my gosh, that'd be horrifying. But you kept your job, right? So, I mean, that's good.
I kept my job, yeah. They got as big a kick out of it as I did.
I bet. Yeah. Well, let's talk Shazam for a minute. That's probably where a generation of kids would recognize you from. I had vague memories of it from when I was little, and now that DC Universe has put it out, all remastered and everything. My son and I rewatched it. It's been a lot of fun rewatching the show, and my son loves it. So it's a fun thing.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, with the movie coming out last year, the Shazam movie, and with the series being remastered and all that, are you finding a new wave of fans coming out of the woodwork?
Yeah, actually, we are. I've been doing a few of Comic-Cons. Did my first one in October of 2017.
Oh, okay, so this is a relatively new addition to your life then. Yeah,
and I've had a few people say, why don't you do this? Well, I don't know. And one day, Michael Gray,
sure, Billy Batson himself, yeah.
Billy Batson, he called me and said, hey, why don't you come down? We'll do the Hollywood show, and that was my first one.
Okay.
He was already set to do it, and then he mentioned my name, and they said could they get me too, And so I said, yeah, what the heck, why not? So we did it, and then it was a lot of fun. I think that was the first one, and then we I've done about a dozen of them since.
Oh wow, okay, so keep you pretty busy then.
Yeah, I don't have anything in the near future, which I'm relieved. Frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll all be homebound for a while.
I think they'll be canceling them.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately. So is that exhausting, or is it mostly just a good time? I mean, you're just having fun?
It's exhausting, but it's really a good time. It's a great place to people watch because all these cosplayers are out there.
Oh, sure.
And other actors that I run into. That most of the actors that are on the Comic-Cons, I don't. Culturally, I've been set. I'm still back in the 70s.
Right. Well, me too, if that makes you feel any better.
Oh, good. Yeah, because I'll see a line around the block for some actor that I never never heard of him. And there'll be three people standing there talking to me, saying, "Oh God, I remember you."
Yeah.
It was our Saturday morning babysitter.
Oh yeah, sure.
When we're doing these Comic-Cons, we usually have a little table, and then you have pictures of what we were.
Yeah. Yep.
I've aged okay, I guess, but I'm still aged,
Right, yeah.
And this was up at Reno, sitting there at my table with my wife. She helps me out when I do these things. My wife, Linda, she's glaring at me across. Gotta introduce her. I don't want to happen.
Hi, Linda.
Yeah. But this lady, we're sitting there, it was kind of a slow period, and this woman walked over to me and she said, "Excuse me, could you tell me when he's coming back?" And I said, "Who?" And she pointed up to me and my Captain Marvel costume. She said, "Him. Do you know when he'll be back?" And I said, "He's already here. I see."
Jeez.
She said, "Oh," and she just about freaked out. But
probably
we had a good laugh.
Probably about as embarrassed as you were on the set of the Rockford Files when you interrupted their scene.
Yeah, pretty much. She probably did. I'm sure the feeling was about the same. So it's been very fun and gratifying too to run into people that enjoy the show.
Sure. Well, I mean, I was so glad when it was suddenly available again because, like I said, it was it aired in reruns when I was very little, and I remember always watching it, but I just hadn't seen it in at least probably 30 years, really.
Yeah.
The story I've always heard is that you got a call, and a few hours later, you're Captain Marvel. You're on the set filming. Is that true?
That's true. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was in my apartment with my son. He was 8 years old, and I got a call from an agent, and he said they want you out on Topanga Canyon. I'm not sure which canyon it was. There's so many canyons out there.
Right. Yeah. One of those canyons.
Yeah, it was Topanga. I think it was Topanga Canyon. They're on location. They want you out there for Shazam. You're going to play Captain Marvel. Oh Jesus! I loved Captain Marvel comic books when I was a kid.
Oh, okay. So you were familiar going in then?
Yeah, but I didn't even know there was a Saturday morning live action show.
Yeah.
So I had envisioned that there was something like, what first came into my mind was like Mr. Rogers or
yeah,
Captain Kangaroo.
Right.
And anyway, I said, just let me just make a couple of phone calls and I'll let you. Well, don't take too long. They're waiting for you.
Wow.
A friend of mine had a small child. her daughter and my 8-year-old were like good buddies.
Okay.
So I called her and asked her. She said, "Oh yeah, Shazam." And she said, "Yeah, Jenny watches it all the time." And,
There you go.
And then finally, which is what I said to them in the first place, I turned to my son and said, "Tom, are you aware of a show called Shazam on Saturday morning?" And, "Oh yeah, I watch it. I love it." And I said, "They want me to play Captain Marvel with you." And he just, I didn't even finish the sentence. He just went bananas and thought, "Oh, wow." And so I called my agent back and said, "I don't know much about this show, but judging from my son's reaction, if I can make him not happy, I'm going to take it. Give me the directions." So I drove out there, and so I'd say within an hour and a half of the time I got the phone call, I was in wardrobe.
Wow. That's stressful. Was it? Were you nervous about going into an existing, the cast and the crew's already friends and all that?
I was extremely stressed.
That sounds like a nightmare.
But but the whole cast and crew, and especially Les Tremaine and Michael Gray, they took me under their wing and just kind of kept me settled down until I got comfortable.
Yeah.
What I was kind of afraid of when I was reluctant to take the job right at first when my agent first called, I was thinking, God, this is going to be the bottom of my career. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's the top of my career. It's the one I'm the most proud of. It probably affects more people than anything else I ever did. So it just shows you how funny things can be.
Yeah. Well, because this was a Filmation show, and they were known primarily just for animation. At this point, right? And so, and it's not like today where, live action superhero shows, there's a million of them. At this point, you really only had, Adam West in the 60s and George Reeves in the 50s, but there weren't a lot of live action superheroes on at the time.
That's right, yeah.
So it wouldn't have been super familiar. It's funny to look at it now because, like I said, there's a million superhero shows and, doing crossovers of big characters. You see that all the time in the movies and on TV, but, for Captain Marvel and Isis to be flying together on screen was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So when did it sort of hit you that wow, here I am playing an iconic character? Was that something that was, did you feel like a responsibility with that?
I did feel the responsibility, because of the fact that it was looked over by the powers that be to make sure there was no foul language, there was no excessive violence, and also a lot of it was shot on location.
Yeah.
Usually, unless we're out in some remote area, there was usually a bunch of families and kids and stuff lurking around.
Yeah, I bet. Trying to get a glimpse. Yeah.
Actually, these Comic-Cons have made me realize even more that it was more important than I thought it was at the time.
Yeah.
Fathers and sons and moms and daughters just raving about how important it was to them, and those little speeches we gave.
Yeah, the morals at the end.
Yeah, the moral. Those really struck home with kids in their formative years.
Well, as a parent now, my son's 5, and when we watch those and we get to those messages at the end, they do always really land for him, and I have a new appreciation for those when I watch, my son learning these lessons and seeing kind of a little morality play out. I think it's great.
Well, you must be a good dad because you care about that. That's really, really important.
Well, I try. It's interesting too with the show. Last year when we did an interview with Elliot S. Magan, who he wrote the Shazam comic for many, many years. And when you read that run, you can tell at what point the show really took off, because suddenly in the comics, there's Billy and Uncle Dudley or Mentor in an RV, and the comics sort of formed themselves to what was happening with the show.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there was a lot of kids, hanging around the set, probably getting a kick out of you hanging off the back of a speedboat and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But what were your reactions? Did you do a lot of publicity for the show then? Were you going around, doing like mall circuits and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I did a few. They were mostly auto shows that we did back then.
Okay.
I only did about 6 or 7 of those. I didn't do many of them. And when the season ended, the agent that sent me out on these shows asked me if I wanted to continue doing those, and I like an idiot. Like a major idiot. I said, no, I don't. I'm turning the page. Let's go do something else.
Yeah.
I said, okay. I think Michael did quite a few of those.
Oh, okay.
He was smarter than
yeah, if I was a kid, I know I would have been begging my dad to take me to that car show. I definitely would have been there.
I actually enjoyed myself at those shows. Enjoyed the kids. They were just going nuts.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really great that now you have the opportunity through these conventions, like you said, to really, to be able to connect with people and hear about the impact that the show made. Because it seems like when you're doing that kind of thing, it could sort of be in a vacuum, and you're not really getting that instant feedback. But so I'm sure that must be a nice feeling to know that it really was impactful and has stood 40 plus years as something that people remember fondly, or people like me sharing it with the next generation.
Yeah, it really is. It's really gratifying to hear.
Oh, well, hey, thanks so much for talking to us today. It's been a lot of fun. We really enjoyed chatting with you.
You're more than welcome, Nick. I appreciate the call.
That was a fun interview.
That's your classic response to interviews.
I guess so, yeah.
That one was fun. So
you don't want my
right.
new Coke response.
What is it?
What a ripping interview.
That's New Coke?
Yeah.
Wow.
And now my classic one is like, what a fun interview again.
Have you ever even had New Coke?
Huh. Good
I
question.
have.
I don't think so.
I have.
Yeah. To hear more about the comic book history of Shazam, tune into episode 189. Was it so long ago?
It was.
How old we've become.
I know. Yeah.
Of the All the Book Show for an in-depth interview with longtime Shazam comic writer Elliot S. Maggin, which was a lot of fun.
It
and
was.
also sort of fun to edit because he's a swearing guy.
That's true. I think that's the only episode we've ever had to put some bleeps in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that episode is cool because Shazam...
Comic book writer Elliot S. Maggin was our first bleep.
That's right. He was. Shazam has such a crazy history because it was a Fawcett comic, and then DC Comics was like, that's too much like Superman, get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
And so it was gone for decades. Then DC buys it, brings it back. Elliot S. Maggin and other authors as well are tasked with writing the Shazam story as if the whole Shazam world has been put in like suspended animation for 40 years or whatever. So it's a kooky series, and Elliot had a lot of fun things
Fawcett
to say
Comics
about
just
it.
opened their door one day expecting a pizza.
Yeah.
It was Jay Garrick and Alan
Scott.
Scott. Crunching their knuckles, ready to strong on him. Like,
right.
you better get out of Dodge.
Yeah, get that Shazam out of here.
Please, Alan Scott and Jay Garrick.
Oh, anyway, thanks again to our guest, John
Golden
Davey.
Age Green Lantern and The Flash.
That's right. They knew what was up. They knew what was up, and they said, Shazam, hit the streets. Anyway, our thanks to our guest, John Davey. The Shazam series is on DVD and is now streaming on the DC Universe, and I got to tell you, it is a good remaster.
Yeah.
The show looks good. It looks crisp.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
I like a nice remaster.
All right. I'm glad you do.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time here on the All the Book Show.
Shazam!